has worked with the UCF Marine Turtle Research Group for the past 4 years, conducting nesting surveys and tagging sea turtles, both onshore and offshore, in the Melbourne area. He specialized research on the dietary habits and preferences of loggerhead sea turtles off the coast of Florida, and he's had the opportunity to present his research at 2 international symposiums. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Biology and is currently pursuing his Master's in Biomedical Sciences at UCF. So please welcome Jason Hendershot.
Thank you guys. I'm Jason. I'll be presenting to you today. I'm going to be talking a lot about sea turtles because that is my relative area of expertise compared to dune plants, but I'm going to try to incorporate some dune plant information into it as well. I'm going to be going over a lot of information, trying to do kind of a paint with a broad brush about sea turtles and life history of sea turtles. So I'd kind of like to make it more interactive. If you guys have any questions during, go ahead and raise your hand. I'll try to get to you. It's just going to be a lot of stuff to where I don't want anybody to think of something they want to ask and then forget it by the time we get to the end. So, this is just kind of the little sections we're going to go by. Let's see. Oh, a lot of the pictures taken for this were in low light because we can usually only take pictures at night, or they're taken with red lights. So it's a little tough to see some of the pictures blown up, so I apologize for that. But here we go. So, University of Central Florida Marine Turtle Research Group works on the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge. That's off the coast of Melbourne, Florida. It's about 13 miles, the refuge itself, and then we do a, you can see right there the Central Brevard Study Area. That's another 16 miles north of this. So we basically do from Sebastian Inlet down here all the way up to Patrick Air Force Base, or including Patrick Air Force Base. We do work on all of that. UCF has been doing that for since 1982. They've been conducting nesting and coastal research, and then some of it was initially started by Dr. Llewellyn Earhart, and then Dr. Kate Mansfield took over here in 2014, and she does a lot of oceanic juvenile research, so that's something that we've taken up recently as well. First I'm going to talk about some of the species that we deal with. We primarily deal with 3 species of sea turtle. First of all, we have the loggerhead. All the turtles I'm talking about are protected species, so all of them have certain restrictions of how to deal with them and everything. Permitting is needed. These are our most common. Up until a few years ago, things are getting a little, we're getting a lot more greens. But historically, we've had mostly loggerhead sea turtles. Here's a couple of pictures of them. They are omnivorous. I'll talk a little bit later regarding my personal research that deals with their dietary habits. But you can see right there, this is the Archie Carr Refuge from 1982 to 2016, the nests per year that they deal with. Loggerheads tend to be the most docile. They're kind of like Labradors of sea turtles. They're great to work with. Their season starts about May 1st. It's starting to slow down right about now, about midsummer, and that's kind of when it's kind of a little bit of a bummer because you got to deal with the more finicky species after that. If I could go into detail, which I can't really too much, loggerhead sea turtles, they're carapace, so their shell itself is something that would be awesome to just talk about to you guys for 30 minutes, just because they have species of algae, barnacles, invertebrates all over. People actually study what's called the epibionts on their carapace, so that's actually, it's its own little world on the loggerhead sea turtle, so I think that's kind of my favorite part of sea turtle. We also deal with the green sea turtle. Well, all these sea turtles, they follow, you'll see here, you kind of have the year-to-year up and downs. We have waxing and waning years. Sea turtles individually tend to nest every 2 to 3 years. So we have kind of these high years and low years. It's less pronounced with the loggerheads. When we get here to greens, you can see it a little more. And then you can see a huge change in these last few years. We've started to get very high years of green sea turtles. Let's see. We're expecting a high year this year, but in 20, our high year prior to this was about 15,750 nests. So as you can see, we started out over those 35 years, an average of 1881. So that's about to shoot up here with how many we're getting now. Green sea turtles are herbivorous. They eat seagrasses, algae. We'll kind of go into that a little bit further when I get to kind of the life history of sea turtles. And they lay a little bit bigger nests than loggerheads. But sea turtles, you see sometimes you'll see kind of the nice little crawl and nest. That's not always the case. Particularly greens and leatherbacks, they tend to kind of have a more wavy sinusoidal trail or happen to kind of go off course completely. Here we have a picture that was just taken last week. A jogger discovered this turtle off Archie Carr. As you can see, she's all on somebody's sod, but he maybe. But so this sea turtle. Then the other weird thing about this is this sea turtle is on the west side of A1A. So it went up the beach, over the road, and onto the other side of somebody's yard. One of the friends of our program works for Florida Stranding. She was the one to respond to this. This was last Thursday, and with her stranding report, she was kind enough to give me what she sent in here. So it's a little hard to tell, but you see the red line goes all the way across the road there. That X is where they found the sea turtle. So she had traveled all that way, across the road, and that's where she's found and reported by the jogger. They tried to, with minimal stress put on the turtle, bring her back. And you can see they kind of just tried to lead her a certain direction, and the yellow trail on the way back is her kind of with minimal stress lead back. So you can see that at one point she was headed back right to where she started. So that was quite an affair, I'm sure. The third sea turtle species that we deal with is the leatherback sea turtle. This is the largest sea turtle in the world. It's the third largest reptile in the world. They get real big. I'll go into the slide. They get up to 1,000 pounds, whereas loggerhead sea turtles, I like to call their nest, it's like a quarter music note. It's a nice little straight crawl and a little sort of circular area. Greens have a tube of sand that can be a couple meters long and a meter and a half wide. Leatherback sea turtles we have one nest that I hope not have to dig up next week. That is the area where they think that eggs is over 1,000 square feet. So it's a 13 meter by 19 meter area. This is like the whole beach is torn up when these guys lay and camouflage their eggs. So it's quite an undertaking. As you can see, the number of nests we get with leatherbacks is a lot lower. The scale on the y-axis is a whole different thing than we dealt with the other turtles. But we are a prominent nesting area for leatherback sea turtles. Let's see. Oh, so leatherback sea turtles, they exclusively eat jellyfish. Now, they're a sea turtle that can be 3 meters long and 2 meters wide, and weigh upwards of 800 to 1,000 pounds. So you say, how on earth do they only eat jellyfish? Well, they have some adaptations that way. They eat up to their body weight in jellyfish a day. To help with that, here, I'll go to this. This is the inside of a leatherback sea turtle's mouth. They have their esophageal papillae that go all the way down the length of their esophagus. It's like a keratinized, kind of semi-hard structure that's facing inward. when the jellyfish go in, that prevents them from getting back out again. Because they're going through these blooms of jellyfish and having to catch so many at once, they've also evolved to have their esophagus go half the length of their body. So they have a convoluted esophagus that kind of zigzags until it gets to the junction, the esophagus-stomach junction. So when they fill that with jellyfish, the jellyfish are unable to escape while they eject that seawater because they're just kind of like open mouth gulping all of this. So they're able to get the seawater out so they're not consuming all that seawater. I'm going to go back real quick here. This is a picture, I absolutely love this picture. It kind of really conveys the feeling of dealing with a leatherback sea turtle. It kind of has to feel like an archaeological dig because you really are dealing with a dinosaur. And you can kind of get the scale for how big the turtle is there with people working on it. But yeah, I think we've had 30 of those so far this summer. But yeah, there's just a whole, maybe a lot of you have seen sea turtles because we live here in Florida, but seeing one of those is a whole different thing. It's 2 to 3 times the size of any other sea turtle. It's tearing up the beach. It's incredible to see. You're sitting there with a dinosaur. So I love that picture.
Is that in Brevard County? Is that at Archie?
Yes,
Archie place?
this is so yes, we've had 30 nests in Archie Carr Wildlife Refuge. Go ahead.
Do they all nest in the same areas, right?
They do nest in, so I'll get into that a little bit later when I get into their life history, but yes, they do show what's called site fidelity, where they will return to the area, the general area where they were born. They tend to, sea turtles.
My question was, do these, since they're so extensive in the nest, do they ever disrupt nests from the other 2 species?
Oh, they absolutely do. Their season starts a little earlier, so the sheer nest density at the point when they're laying is a lot lower. So if we were to, they're kind of tailing off right now. If we were to have some of these right now, it would be disrupting a lot of other nests, especially considering they lay their eggs a lot deeper. They can lay their eggs 1.5 feet deep, whereas we'll see a little less so with the other turtle species. So yes, they can be highly disruptive of other turtle species and turtle nests when they're coming through. Go ahead.
Are their babies born bigger than other sea turtles?
They're a little bit bigger, but it's still they're still not big.
Born, right?
Yeah, they're still not big by any means. But yeah, they are a little bit bigger than the other species of sea turtle.
Why are there so few nests? Are there so few eggs?
They do
have
lay fewer eggs, but this is also they're a critically endangered species versus we're seeing at least off in Florida we see good greens and loggerheads have been taken off endangered species list, whereas or at least our local populations, whereas leatherbacks continue to be on there. So it's just a rarer species and more threatened. Just not able. No, we don't have the numbers of them that we do. They lay a few less eggs, 80 or so eggs, whereas the other 2 species will lay clutches of 80 to 120. Just because the eggs are bigger and just take more energy. So sea turtle, that brings up something. Sea turtles, what they'll do is they'll lay 4 to 6 clutches during a season. The female will come up, lay her eggs. 10 to 14 days later, she'll come back and somewhere on the beach and lay another clutch. So they do that, every other year. So we have, especially with leatherbacks, because we try to see every single one because they're so rare. Most of the leatherbacks we see are ones that we previously tagged and we know the identity of. Once in a while, we either find on the beach or we catch in water some other species that don't generally live in our area or nest in our area. On the left, we have in the Indian River Lagoon, that's a hawksbill sea turtle. And then on the right, we have a Kemp's Ridley sea turtle, and those were, Kemp's Ridley is from 2016, I think, and then on the left, the Hawk's Bill, it was earlier this year that they caught it in the Indian River Lagoon. There is your Vice President Amanda Morgan right there, with, you know, pure wonder in her eyes. We're going to talk a little bit here about sea turtle eggs, so you can kind of understand when I get into the dune ecology and everything. So sea turtle eggs aren't like chicken eggs; they're leathery. They're not entirely filled with liquid. They have enough to where they have a little dimple, so that when the eggs are dropped, you know, that foot and a half, that if they crash into other eggs, there's no eggs breaking. Now, this is beneficial in that respect, but it also makes, we also have sea turtle eggs are more porous. So when it comes to natural disasters, they kind of have more problems. And we had Hurricane Matthew in October 2016. That didn't really cause too many problems for our nesting sea turtles. It's right around the tail end of the season. Plus the hurricane just didn't hit the beach as hard. In September 2017, I think it was the 10th or the 8th, where it hit land. We were currently experiencing a record green turtle year at that time. We lost about half the nests, and then we lost about 2,700 loggerhead nests. It's a little later in the loggerhead season, so we have fewer nests incubating, where it's right about in the middle of incubation for a lot of our green sea turtle nests. So, how do we lose all these nests? You may ask. It's not that the beach is getting torn up so much and those eggs are being exposed. It's more so that when the hurricane comes, we're experiencing higher tides. When these nests are getting inundated with water, though it may not clear out all the way, a lot of those eggs are sitting with water in the chamber for some amount of time. And we see drowning of the embryos and things like that. This is a nice carved out little, so you can kind of see, it's kind of a, there's a chamber dug out below there, and that doesn't always, it's not going to quickly drain the water depending on the composition of the sand and everything. So that's how we lose a lot of nests, is just those eggs, if they're within high tide several days in a row, they end up drowning. So, to get into some plants, they try to re-nourish the beach after it's decimated by the